This is the Indy 11 Coaches Show, brought to you by your Central Indiana Ford dealers. Sit back, relax, and enjoy a beverage from 450 North Brewing, the official beverage of the Indy 11 Coaches Show. Now, let's get an inside look at the players, tactics, and opponents with Indy 11 head coach Sean McAuley.
Episode 3 of the Indy 11 Coaches Show, brought to you by your Central Indiana Ford dealers. We're at it again. Okay, Sean, today we are enjoying, from 450 North Brewing, bourbon cream soda. And this is the orange cream variety. So bourbon whiskey with orange cream soda and fruit and vegetable juice for color. I can't believe all that stuff is in there.
Well, it's got vegetables in, so you're
getting your daily count.
5 a day, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I took a sip and I said, I can't believe there's alcohol in this. So these are great. And these might make me ask some wilder questions, you know, so apology.
Yeah.
It's the fault of here if that happens. But good to be talking with you again. There's not much to talk about this week, I don't think. There's just, a bunch of news happening last week. It was a whirlwind last week for, I think, just about everybody involved. But you're dealing with adversity in terms of on the field with injuries. The news that came out, unbeaten in 2 games before that, but before in kind of the month of April, you didn't have the results you wanted. How did you go about managing all of that as it culminated together?
We knew we had big games and tough games. Charleston and Louisville have proved now that they're, obviously not going to run away with it, but they're separating themselves as being a little bit different to everybody else. So they were tough games. And then we also knew that Colorado and North Carolina were games that we need to take points from. And, on a point on the road, I think we should have got 3 against Colorado, and we managed to pick up 3 points at the weekend. And then sandwiched in between all them was the Open Cup game. I'm really pleased that we took care of that and got through to the next round.
In your career in the past, have you dealt with adversity like this, where it's some of it is in your hands, the on the field stuff, but even some of the on the field stuff is in your hands with injuries? And then kind of other things totally out of your hands. How do you go about, or in the past, how have you gone about kind of dealing with that and controlling what you can control?
You have to pick up the short-term gains and short-term wins. One of my first jobs in coaching professional football was in 2002. I was the assistant manager at Halifax Town, and the club had just got relegated and were in administration. So we couldn't buy anything. We couldn't, literally, we were operating on a day-to-day basis. We were, week by week in terms of getting paid. And you have to go through that, and, you do it for the good of the group and for the good of the club as well. The clubs have got, their supporters, their people that are employed. The team is the one thing constant that has to be there, and and that's what you've got to do. You've got to focus on the team and focus on getting the short-term gains and wins.
So was it cool for you then just to be able to focus for 90 minutes, 2 hours on, exactly what your job is and the just playing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's always going to be the case, that when the ball rolls, players, coaches, everybody, and even sports forget about what's going on because they concentrate on the game. So that was the good, what you would call a distraction from the other noise that's going around. But, I thought the players did well in their efforts to get the 3 points. And I think it was a really big 3 points for us, not only in terms of position in the league and, where we want to be at the end of the season, but also for the short term, people wanted to see us win.
Yeah. I think we'd be lying too if we said that, there wasn't just a little bit of a kick in the behind kind of, and just kind of added some more fuel this week. Do you feel like that was kind of palpable with the guys, with the group?
Yeah, and I think it's each individual, is different because, some players have been through news like what we had before, and that news has consequences that they've also lived through before, so that can have a negative effect. And then some, use it, like you said, as fuel to make sure that they get the job done. And overall, I was pleased with the whole of the group.
You emphasize fight. I mean, you have done this season as a whole, but very much so on Saturday. But fighting continuously is tough work. How do you prolong that for an extended period?
I think you've got to make it part of your DNA. That's what your team is. What you want to be recognized as. You want to be a team that plays hard but fair, and you want to be one of them teams that nobody really wants to play against. And while we have continued to say that message, I still think we've got more in us and we should do more.
Do you, when you've been watching your guys this year so far, do you feel like kind of that is the difference between when it's good and when it's not so good? Is the amount of fight there, or have there been times like maybe the first half on Saturday against North Carolina where the fight is there, but decisions might not be made in the right way, or just getting things right technically aren't happening?
I don't think we've ever not give maximum effort. That's, credit to the players that they've always given maximum, effort, everything that they've got.
Yeah.
And if sometimes that everything's not quite good enough, at the end of the day, we'll accept that because they're giving the maximum. On Saturday, in terms of performance-wise, they did go out there and fight and scrap, but I thought in the first half they could have had a bit more quality and be better in their decision-making of when and where to pass the ball and what type of pass, would cause the opponent the most trouble. And we tended to take the easy option all the time in the first half.
You talked to Greg Rakestraw and Brad Hodder at halftime before you went into the dressing room, and you could tell you weren't very happy with what you had seen. And then I know post-game you said that halftime wasn't necessarily pretty. However much you want to share about what halftime looked like, please do. And do you think that in general, the guys kind of take your messages to heart at halftime throughout the season so far?
Yeah, I mean, you would hope that they would take it. And I think,
but do you see actionable steps that kind of in the second halves based on what you said?
Well, basically in the second half, we had the kickoff, and within 15 seconds we have a corner. And my message to them, if you want me to share it, was they need to get the ball forward and cross it more. We created one shot at goal in 45 minutes. It's not good enough. So I was, letting the players know I had the responsibility to deliver that. Their role and responsibility in sort of carrying that out for the second half was so important for us if we're going to win the game. And it's not just down to them. The ball's got to get to them. It's got to get to certain areas. We've got to be under control, and then we've got to have movement and runners going into the areas where you score goals. And if you look at the majority of goals, and we can say this, 80% of all goals across the world are scored from an area of the field. And if you look at all 3 goals that were scored in our game, they were all scored from the area of the field where goals go in. So we weren't placing the ball into them areas. So I don't know how the players thought they were going to score a goal. So I just reminded them of that. Probably a slightly more aggressive way than what I'm speaking to you about.
You say it differently in the locker room than you do in a podcast.
Yeah. But it's a fact, the first goal was an own goal. And I could go through every goal that we've scored and conceded this season, other than the one that goes in at the Charleston goal. The majority of others are from a similar area of the pitch. And I think it was Barcelona years and years ago called it the golden zone, which I'm not going to call it that, but it's amazing when Barcelona call it something, everybody takes it on board. But it's an area of the field where the majority of goals are scored from. All 3 goals in our game were scored from there. One an own goal, Dougie's goal, and then their header. It's the same area. And we put the ball there a couple of times in the first half. One of them, to be fair, Tega turned in it a great shot, and that's an attempt at goal. But it's an attempt at goal from an area of the pitch where the ball should be to try and score a goal, and we just weren't doing it. And in the first half, we were getting up to the edge of their area and in wider areas and wanting to pass the ball back. And when you pass the ball back, you give the opponent the opportunity to pressure. Because every team in the world presses a negative pass, every single one. So when we're passing the ball back 40 yards from a crossing area to the halfway line, what's the opposition going to do? Well, press the ball. So not only are you not doing your job on your way, you're making it even easier for the opponent. So in the second half, I thought we started it really well. And again, shows you the mentality of the group was really good because we conceded, I think, 3 minutes after we scored. And I'm really pleased that they got the second goal.
They were both set pieces from almost the same spot. You'd think that, maybe defensively North Carolina does something different on the second one, but they were both played into a really good area by Jack, especially that second one deep for the cutback from Callum. How do you go about working on set pieces with the group?
I mean, that's just a weekly thing. It's very similar to, we have to work on the fitness and conditioning of the players. We have to work on the relationships within the different units of the group. We have to work on the team tactical stuff, and set plays are part of that. So it's just a weekly thing. And goals from set plays are random. They're random events. You want to score more, obviously, than what you concede, because then that gives you an advantage. But, in terms of guaranteeing a certain amount of goals a season, more work you do, then, yeah, you can do that. But in terms of each game, you might not score one for 4 or 5 games, then you might get 2 in one game. So the random events.
Can I ask you about, on the second one, I think this is maybe not an uncommon thing as a professional, but Callum playing the ball back across. I think anybody in that spot could go themselves, but he chooses to play it back across for somebody to have a better chance. What do you feel that speaks to? Is that just knowing your role? Is that realizing that you have to do what's best for the team? What do you sort of think the genesis of that is?
I want to say that he was doing it for the best of the team. I'm probably factually going to say he had a slight hamstring tear and couldn't kick it with his left foot, so he played it across with his right. He was struggling with an injury, and I do think it was the right thing to do anyway, because it was coming a little bit quick for him, and it was a little bit wider, technically on his wrong side. So he did a great job of putting it back across. And you've got to see the reaction of our attacking players, people who were attacking the ball, the attacking team at that time, responded way quicker than what the defending team did. And that obviously gets you a set play. Yeah. 2 key things in set plays. Really simple. Delivery and desire. So you can work out all your different movements and all that, but if the delivery is not good enough, then you're never going to utilize the movements. And if your delivery is good and you work out all your different movements, but the desire to score the goal's not there, there's no point. So it's delivery and desire. They're the 2 things that will make a set play go in the net. And I thought we had that on both.
Is there anybody else in the league right now you'd rather have over a dead ball than Jack Blake?
No, he's excellent. And I thought he had a great chance in the second half as well. Technically hit it right, got cut back to him, and usually he finds himself in them positions, and usually it's the target. He did again, and maybe on a different day, that one goes in, and we're talking about a different scoreline. But yep. Overall he's been excellent with everything he's doing.
What was the most satisfying thing for you from that night?
Seeing the owner. Listen, we've had games where we've not won at home, and we've been in winning positions, and he has constantly been, don't worry about, keep positive, and for once we can repay him with a positive performance when, the week that he's had is probably a lot worse than what we've had.
I think too, you've talked a lot about just everybody pulling in the same direction, and I felt that a lot on Saturday night. Just everyone that was in that building wanted one thing, and we're all together.
Yeah, and that was, like I said, we knew it was a big game for multiple reasons, but the biggest one was for the supporters and everybody that's attached to the club, because it was a little bit of a statement for us all.
Let's talk about some of the other games since the last time we spoke. I think the first one would be Louisville. That seems like years ago now. But being on CBS, obviously result-wise wasn't what we wanted, but it was a brilliant opportunity to just put the club out there. Louisville were flying that day, and 5-3 is a wild score line. You've said it before. You score 3 away from home, you think you should win. Does that speak more to how good Louisville were on the day, or any other takeaways from that? A bit removed from it now.
Yeah, we were poor, I thought, on the day, and we conceded poor goals at the wrong time. There's never a good time to concede a goal, but we conceded goals at poor times. We'd got to 3-2 and we just made a change. Brought players on the field, to give us that little extra to try and get the equaliser. And within seconds, the ball's in the net. And then it's 4-2. So what you were carrying momentum in, trying to get back into the game, had gone. And then obviously, they score and, you know, it looks bad. Then we score the third to make it a little bit more respectable. But overall on the day, we didn't play well enough. And that is you know, going to be good for us moving forward because we need to be better when we're playing them games.
I'm curious about this as someone who's been on the broadcast side of things, of you like doing in-game interviews and stuff like that. Do you have to turn a little switch in your mind of like, you know, not to give away tactical information or things like that, or make sure you're not swearing when you're, you know, talking to people on CBS?
Not really. You know, there's only so many things you can talk about in a game of football, and you know, generally there's only so many answers you can give. So, you know, through experience of knowing that, you know, it's probably going to be coming when you're down in the game. Usually, it's what you're going to do to get back into it. So, you know, it's not that it's easy and it's not that it's simple, because you've got the emotion, you've got the timing and everything else, but it's part of the job, and you've just got to get on with it.
Yeah. The next one was another loss to one of the other top two teams in the division, in Charleston, who most recently beat Las Vegas 6-0. But it felt like there were more positives to take away from that one.
Yeah, I think conceding the goal just before half time and not going in, you know, going in level rather than up was a big downer for us. But even at that stage, I still thought we were going to be good enough to win the game. But again, you know, through our endeavours to try and get the third goal, we left ourselves a little bit too open at the back. And they're a good team, but they're not. They shouldn't be coming to our place and scoring 4 goals. So that was the disappointment in that game. But again, it was a little bit closer in terms of what the previous week was. But 2 games against 2 really good teams. We've played what we believe is the best team in the West in Sacramento. So we've had a tough run of fixtures, but everybody's really. It's a really tough game against anybody if you don't win games. So to pull back and get, you know, 4 points from the last 2 is really pleasing for us.
I think too, last year there was definitely teams that you go into a game against and it's like, you know, everyone's beating them. So there's a lot more parity, it feels like, at least at the start of this year, especially in the East. So that, you know, that kind of makes it interesting as well. Next up is the Open Cup 1-0 win against Chicago Fire 2. You're able to change some guys in the starting 11. You don't get away with, you know, having no injuries though in that one. Lose a couple guys. But I think, you know, with cups, you'll probably take any way you can get a win, especially if you're playing away from home. You'll take it.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that in the first sort of 20, 30 minutes, if we'd have scored a second goal, it would have, you know, put it dead and buried. And we had a couple of chances, big chances, and we didn't put them away. So whenever you keep a team hanging around, it motivates them even more. And to be fair to them and credit to them, they came out in the second half and really give it a right good go against us. And at that point, we'd got some players who'd not played 90 minutes probably since a preseason game. A lot of them on the field. We made some changes based on the game coming after it. You know, so Augie came on, you know, and Teggy came on, but then we took Jack off, so it was a little bit of a mismatch group of players. You know, that there was no real rhythm in that second half for us. But the one positive thing was the defensive aspect of that game, and we kept a clean sheet, and you know, and we got through to the next round, and that's all that in the cup is. You know, you only get one chance at it, so we got the job done, and I was really pleased for the lads to get the minutes in the game, and then to see it through in the end, because it got a little bit touchy at the end.
2 guys, Elliot Collier back in the city, one where he went to college, but 2 where he signed his first professional contract. And then Lawrence Wooten on loan from that organization right now. How cool is it for them to kind of play in such familiarity?
I think so with Elliot's performance. He was good, you know, and I think the familiarity of being in that field, because, you know, he would have played his games, you know, first games as a pro probably on that field. And it sort of gave him a lot of confidence. I thought Lawrence was the same early on, and then I think he ran out of legs a little bit as the game went on because, again, he did a full pre-season and then had near enough a month off through his visa process. So I was really pleased for both of them, and I was pleased that we were able to get a win.
The cup can be magical, and it's not just this one, but cups around the world that I grew up watching FA Cup and stuff like that. We almost had one of the best FA Cup moments in a while, Coventry City against the Manchester United game a little bit ago. But VAR comes in and does its job, what it was designed to do. I think it robbed half that stadium of raptures. But in your career, cup runs you've been on, favorite memories?
Yeah, we got to the semi-final of the Scottish Cup, and I actually got dropped for the semi-final, which is pretty bad off the manager at the time, against Rangers. And what I remember is, I remember beating Kilmarnock in the quarterfinal, which was huge for us because, you go to the semis and it's at Hampden, it's the National Stadium. But you never get to them games unless you take care of business in the games before. And I think we played Stenhouse, Muir, and maybe it was Cowdenbeath, like non-league teams. And I remember how tough them games were because we were a Premier League team going down to play them, and that's what, they say the magic of the cup, and the games at the end are really, really special. But you only get to them if you take care of business and at the front end of it. And, that's probably what I'm going to try and say to the players when we come to the next round. We potentially could have a home game against an MLS team. And once you get past that, I think then we're in the quarters, is it?
That would be, yeah.
So then you're looking at, high-end excitement.
Not just an MLS team, too, the current holders.
Yeah.
They've got to get past Detroit, obviously. Yeah. And we've got to take care of business, too. So, that's what I was going to... Any of, the best moments that you've watched that you've really enjoyed in any FA Cup, Scottish Cup, Open Cup?
I remember when I was at Manchester United, we played Oldham in a semi-final, and then its semi-final replay was at Main Road, the old Manchester City ground, and that was an unbelievable atmosphere. And because Oldham was Premier League team at that time and pretty close, and so that was good. When Man United first won the FA Cup against Crystal Palace, that was a really good 2 games because the first game was 3-3. And then we travelled down for the second game, and I wasn't part of the squad. I was just part of the staff. And
final was 2 legs?
No, replay. And then one of our reserve team squad, who was in our squad for the reserves, got a chance to play, and he scored the winner.
Oh.
So that was pretty special. Now, I remember that being on a Thursday night. So the first game was on the Saturday, and then they did the replay on a Thursday night for some reason.
I can't imagine that FA Cup final being on a Thursday anymore.
Yeah, no. It was a replay at Wembley. It was great.
That's cool. Okay, on to the next was the away game at Colorado on a short week, long travel, but short turnaround. Give you 2 flip sides here. One, all that kept in mind, relatively good performance, and you get a point on the road against a Western Conference team. But from the other side, I think people outside saw Colorado as they hadn't won a point yet on the season. And, they think, we can't beat them, that's not great. How do you feel about sort of those perceptions, from the outside of if you got a team struggling, you have to beat them? Obviously, you want to win every game, but...
The perceptions of Colorado, what's the perception of us? Because we can't turn around and say Colorado hadn't done much this season when we've only got travelling into the game with 4 points. So there is no given right for us to turn up there and win the game just because we're Indy 11. We've only got 4 points ourselves. So we were not much different to what they were. What was disappointing is I do think we should have got 3 points as soon as they had the man sent off. And I think from the free kick that the guy got sent off, we had a really clever free kick and Jack Blake got in. And if he scores, it's, playing against 10 men, 2-1 up, we would win the 3 points. Fully confident in that. But going into the game, knowing that their squad was better and they should be in a better position than what they were, very similar to us. Our squad is better than what position we were in at the time, so it was going to be an evenly matched game. Obviously you'd have to deal with the travel and the altitude and all that, but it was the weather that the pitch was so quick and slick. That was what, and it might have caused them to get the guy sent off. It was really tough to play in the conditions. Yeah, turf, but it was a wet turf, like really quick. And I thought, obviously, we concede early. Then after that, I thought we controlled large parts of the game and deserved the goal to go 1-1. And then in the second half, it should have been ours to win. But then you're also looking at 1-1, even with them down to 10 men. They had a couple of chances on counter-attacks, which were quite threatening to us because they've got players, if you've got players in your team with pace and people that can run with the ball, you're always gonna have a threat at goal, and we nearly fell foul of not walking away with anything. So in the end, really disappointed we didn't take advantage of the extra man and get 3 points. But you've got to say that walking away with a point, if I was in their locker room, I would have been disappointed if they didn't get a point.
First time in Colorado Springs?
Yes.
I've never been there, and I'm assuming not too many of our supporters have. Because it's kind of different than Denver. It's what, an hour away?
Maybe a bit long, yeah.
A little more.
Couple hours from the airport.
You're right up in the mountains, right?
I don't know.
Oh, scenery-wise, could you...
I saw the front of my hotel and the car park when I went out the window, and then the coach ride was to the stadium and then to the airport.
Was that partly weather? Was it just cloudy and snowy?
There was there's nowhere to really go, and to be fair, on the road, people think you're going and visiting cities. You're not.
Right.
And you're going to visit a hotel, and you stay in the hotel, and that's you. And then you go and play the game. You go back to the hotel, and then that's you back home.
Not too much sightseeing.
There's no sightseeing. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
There's strict. I wouldn't say rules, but there's strict timetable in place for meals. Players have to get up at a certain time to eat their breakfast, then certain time to eat the lunch, and then pre-match meal. Then we'll have meetings in between. So there is no real time to visit the city. It looked really nice from the coach.
There you go.
From the bus riding, looked really, really nice.
Okay.
The stadium was good. It
looks cool.
I like the stadiums. It was very much like a Scandinavian type feel to it. And other than the playing surface, everything seemed to be, really good.
Yeah, that weather, even just doing normal everyday things in weather like that, when it's snow that turns to water right when it hits anything, just brutal.
Yeah.
One of the things that happened in that game was a switch at goalie, pre-planned. But I know that you said once you give a keeper a chance, you can't pull him in and out. In Hunter playing the next game against North Carolina, I think using those words you said, I think it would be safe to assume that he might get a stretch in the team. How do you go about the conversations with him and the conversations with Yannick? Because goalie is such a unique position. There's only one that's going to be playing each game.
Yeah. Like I said, the switch was pre-planned. We're going to put something in place for the next week where we have 3 games in a week because we need to keep both of them sharp. In terms of Hunter getting the start again, he's performances have shown that, he probably needs a little run in the team. And the fact that Yannick is a senior pro and a good pro, he would want the same if it was the other way around, that, you don't want to go in and one mistake gets you out.
Yeah.
So here I fully expect Yannick to support Hunter and be ready and available when we call on him. And that'll be, probably in the next week where we have 3 games in a week, to keep everybody sharp.
Yeah, and if you get in, you win that Open Cup game, it becomes 2 weeks later another busy week as well.
Yeah.
So the fixtures come thick and fast. Looking ahead a little bit, Racing Indy night is near the end of May. Phoenix at home, but it is always in correlation with the Indy 500. Have you ever been in? I assume you don't really have time in May usually, so I'm assuming you've never been to Indy 500.
I've been to one of the practice days.
Okay.
When we played Indy, what were they called? Indy Blast, maybe.
Was that when you got lost running around the same trip?
So we stayed at the hotel that's right on the track. And then we got access, because we stayed for a couple of days, and we got access to walk through the hotel into the track. And then I just remember couldn't really see the cars because they moved too quick, but it was like it was unbelievably busy, like a great atmosphere, like park type atmosphere.
Yeah, I think on actual race day they get is it 500,000, 300,000? I think it's a lot of people. Do you have any plans to take it in this year to make an experience? It's kind of tough because we play on that Saturday, and then if you want to see it in general admission, you're getting up at 6 a.m. on the Sunday, and I'm assuming Sunday's a busy day for you already.
Yeah, I probably, would love to go, but if not, then I'll maybe take it in on TV, because I'm presuming it's going to be on every television.
I watched it for the first time last year.
Yeah.
I mean, once you get here, you kind of can't, because it's all anybody talks about.
I have watched the Netflix show.
Drive to Survive?
No.
I've
watched that.
That's F1.
I've watched that.
What is the
Indy 500 or the Indy or whatever, it's called Full Speed, I think.
Oh, is it like a countdown? Like
there's another one on now, but there's one that follows them for a season. Follows about 5 or 6 drivers. And it's sort of gives you a good insight into what they do. It's really good. Indy Need for Speed or something like that.
Full Speed sounds right.
Yeah.
And then there's another one that was like 100 day out.
100 days, from the yeah.
Okay.
But the one before that, the Full Speed is really good.
Okay. I'll have to do my homework.
I did that because, like I said, if you live in here, you've got to try and stay up to date with the local knowledge.
Otherwise, you're going to be left out of conversations, and that's never fun.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Sean. That's episode 3. That's us done. And the 3rd edition of the Indy 11 Coaches Show podcast, brought to you by your Central Indiana Ford dealers. Once again, a thank you to 450 North Brewing. We enjoyed today the bourbon cream soda. It was very good. It's done. It's gone in my can. Just one shout out to Indy 11 shop. There's lots of good stuff. So much so that it forced me to get out my credit card last week and probably spend a little bit too much money on some merch. But head there and make sure you get your stuff for the summer months as we warm up here. Please join us next time, and thanks for listening this time.
This is the Indy 11 Coaches Show, brought to you by your Central Indiana Ford dealers. Be sure to like and follow this podcast, and check out other great podcasts on the All Indiana Podcast Network. To watch the video version of this podcast, subscribe to the Indy 11 YouTube channel.